Good morning. I'm going to share with you the outcome of acrylic month in February. It's not as good as I hoped. So in part it was because my youngest niece, who's 10 years old, had a very serious accident on the 1st of February. She was almost killed in a collision. Thankfully she had a helmet on, a cycle helmet. So folks, wear your cycle helmets. And so I wasn't really of the mind. And then halfway through the month it turned out that I should be further along with my book than I am. So it's been work. So we're going to start off with the A4 one. On the 31st of January, I started the month by swatching out, mixing down, like adding white, doing mixes, and just understanding how acrylics work, trying to. I also watched a lot of YouTube videos explaining process, trying to understand how to mix them better. So here we had the original yellow ochre, naphtha crimson, French ultramarine, and then mixing them with, so this was the yellow ochre with French ultramarine, and then with naphtha crimson, and then this was naphtha crimson with ultramarine, and then yellow ochre, just to see the comparison. This is naphtha crimson with yellow ochre. You can see different amounts because obviously this is more orange, so there was the red added to the yellow, and here there was a bit of yellow added to the red. So I was just trying to experiment, and you can see on the 6th of February I also tested a variety of materials on top of the acrylics. So I've got polychromos, neo ones, luminance. I did some wet on wet, pencils over the top, some splashes. It turns out that if you apply acrylics with a lot of water, you can get that kind of like watered down look, similar to like watercolor and gouache. Then you can do splashes, you can do dry brush. So just experimenting to kind of find my way around. And then the same on the 31st here. This is more acrylic swatching. Then we go to the 1st of February, and this was the day of my niece's accident. So I did this earlier in the day. It's terrible, and yeah, that's not very exciting, but and then I did this one on the 2nd, the day after. So with this one I actually used paintbrush. I think it looks like it was a paintbrush that I just was trying to, and I hate it, it's ghastly, but you know, I've got to show you the bad as well as the good, right? The next day I didn't really do any work the whole day because I was worried about Soph. That was on Friday, and I got my squeegee, and that's something I've discovered. I love my squeegee. So not this one, but the big one. I don't know where it's gone. I think I've put it away for now, but I just like chose out a few colors and I just squeegeed it across, and I really like the kind of abstractness. And I posted this on YouTube in the community section, and loads of people said to leave it as is and not play with it, because I was tempted to put pencil over. I'm glad I didn't, but I do later on. Then so that's the 1st, the 2nd. The 4th is when I went and bought some colors. So actually I bought them on the 3rd for my birthday, but I was like feeling a bit restrained, and you will have seen this in my birthday art haul video, but I went and bought like a bunch of colors and then played with them, just had some more fun mixing, seeing like the different colors I could get. And then on the 5th I did these. This was dry brush, but doing like at an angle. And it's funny because I'd seen a video saying that dry brush was a sign, after I'd done this, that dry brushing was a sign of someone that doesn't know what they're doing, and it made me laugh. So I did this like dry brush trying to get like, I don't know. Again, my niece was still in hospital at that time and we were still worrying. This was the opposite direction. I wanted to do upright, and I intended to go in with pencils or something and do something with it, but time I haven't. And then on the 6th, so these were both on the 5th of February. And then on the 6th, again, more like mindless doodling really, I played around with texture. So I did like a gradient that was watered down, and then I was dragging things across to see what kind of texture I could get within the paint. I used like one of those pastry brushes, a silicone pastry brush, and just stippled it to try and see. And then this was with the palette knife, which I really enjoyed. I have like a little palette knife, and I was just smishing the color on. So I like how, because this paper is so smooth, I like the effect I get of layering up with a palette knife. You'll see that clearer later on in a different example. Then the 7th, pretty much the same thing. Payne's Grey, Permanent Rose, India Red Oxide, and just layers of watered acrylics to try and, I think I was watching something at the time. I think it was like this Irish guy on YouTube doing a tutorial, but he died some time ago, like a couple of years ago. Can't remember his name, but I was kind of inspired by what he was doing. I think it was him. I should make a note of these things, but in the moment I forget. So it's like a an attempt at a moody landscape. A terrible attempt, but anyway. And then I also did experiments. So this is like putting white over. So this color is not watered down. It's quite thick and textured. Not too thick, but I scraped lines through it. And then I put a Neocolor 2 over the top dry. And then I put it down and I wetted it. And then I did a dough drawing. And I just wanted to see what kind of effects I got layering up other mediums on top. And it doesn't work so well when the color is thick, when the acrylic is thick. Again, just using the pastry brush thing to create texture. Then the next thing I did was this. This was the 10th. And this was inspired by this. So I wanted to take this kind of color palette that everyone said don't play with. And I wanted to be able to play with it. So I did 2 big pieces, again with the big squidger, and I squished the paint with that. Now, both of these were like this one. I love, can you see that? Like, oh my goodness gracious me, look at the texture. The different layers, where it's like going on relatively transparent and then the layers build up. I really love that. There's something about it that just makes me feel like, oh. And I loved the fact that I had 2 different but same, because they were the same colors and I did them at the same time. But then this one I decided I was going to experiment with pencil, and I actually started to color in with my pencils, like to build up the tone, and I hated how it looked. So I went in and I just did like abstracty shapes, which actually impacted or influenced what I did later in the month. So actually I don't mind this. I wish this big blob of Payne's Grey wasn't there, because that distracts the eye, and had I known what I was going to do with it, I probably wouldn't have added such a big blob, but I didn't know at the time. Maybe it's like a little jetty. This is the water, the lagoon, a little bit of sand and the sky. I don't know, that just came to me now actually. I love both of these. I think they're quite fun and not considered. I didn't think about it. I just went with intuitively. That's what they say, isn't it? So that was the 10th. On the 13th, I got the acrylic inks out and I smushed them around a bit, and I really liked the color combination. This was one of the muted gray, I think, and this one was the bright azo yellow maybe. And I love the combination. I also have, it's saying that I also have the 13th in here. Oh yeah, ignore this. This was on a FaceTime with my niece later in the month. I took a screenshot. She has her arm in a sling and a hedgehog on her head. So ignore this. But then I was playing around here with throwing splodges. And it's ghastly, but I have to show you the good with the bad, right? So terrible, not so terrible. I don't know what it is, but the colors make me happy. It's almost like this is a volcano and this is the ash and that's like the fiery sky, the smoke maybe, I don't know. It is what it is. Now the 14th, we have a continuation of the theme here. All this, I don't know what my intention was with this now, but again, I was inspired by the colors from the day before. So I did lots of like water on the page, and then I dropped it, because these were droppers, dropped it on. I got my brush and moved it a little bit. I went this way, I went that way. I feel like it needs something doing to it, and I have got the platinum ink, and I keep thinking of going in, but it's also, do I want the harsh black ink look on this, because I really love just looking at the colors. So I don't know. And then apparently the 14th, we also have, it was the Valentine's Day, and so Katie Moody's Patreon was texture here, and so she had a couple of photos for us to work from. This was the armadillo. Again, I did just use acrylics for her Patreon session because I wanted to continue my acrylic month, obviously, but then I went in after and I added detail with pencil. So this is an armadillo, terrible armadillo, lots of layers, scraping on with the palette knife again. And these were supposed to be 2 no, not llamas, what's the other thing that's fuzzy? I did not manage to finish this. I think I only had like 15 minutes for this and I hated every moment of it, so that didn't work very well. The one that I loved, oh, I love this one. So this one was a palette knife, the catalyst thing, and dry brush. And I keep going back to this and looking at it. I think it's a mix of colors. I think it's the combination of texture, because like some of the blobs of paint are quite like sticky uppy and textured. I did dry brushy type for the sky, blobs, circles. I think that was with like a metal stick that I was trying to create circles with. And I like this one. I think it's possibly the color palette most of all, followed by the texture, but I just like it. It makes me happy to look at. So that was the 14th. Then we jump back to the 16th. So because I had done several that day, and that's the point at which I was like, oh my goodness, I've got my deadline coming up for my book, I kind of then just jumped into doing for the sake of doing, and these are shocking. I know that I was going to do something with this, and I didn't. I don't know what it is. I don't know what I was thinking. It was like a late at night, oh my gosh, I haven't done acrylic, I need to get something done. Because by then I hadn't done anything on the 15th and it was the 16th and I felt bad. So the same with the 17th, absolutely ghastly. This was with the dropper ink because I was inspired by the other one I'd shown you. So I was like, oh, let me get more dropper inks out, like liquid inks. Well, what can I say? Like, with the good comes the bad. I really enjoyed this. I thought this came out okay, and then we have this ghastly shock of a shock. Then I didn't do anything with both of these being a disaster. I didn't do anything on the 18th, and the 19th I did another blob of disaster. Just colour that was on a page, watered down, not knowing what I wanted to do, feeling really uninspired. I didn't have a theme. All I had set myself was to use acrylics, and I really struggled with not having a theme. So that was the 19th, terrible. Jump ahead to the 21st, and actually my friend CL had a photo of walking around London, and I saw it on Insta, and I was like, CL, can I please draw your picture? And she was like, of course, thank you for asking. So she sent it to me so I had a better res, and I did that with acrylic markers, and then I went in with pencil, and not happy with it, but it was at least a step in the right direction. Better than nothing. Then I put this book away because I'd had enough, and on the 23rd I moved into the sketchbook again. And this was from the trees book. So in here there's an underwater kelp illustration, and I liked the colours, and I thought, well, let's see what I can do with that. But I got fed up with it. I hated it, so I stopped. I did acrylic on the base, again using my squeegee thing, and then I went in with acrylic markers, and I just hated how it looked, so I stopped. That was the 23rd. But what I did is I then came back on the 24th, and I did this in here, which I like more. So it's not, as you can see, it's not a direct copy of what was in front of me, but it's definitely inspired by, and it is definitely better than this one. It's darker, it's moodier, it has like a better color palette. This one I just went a bit stupid. So that's that. And then the 26th again was in here. So this is from the one that everyone said don't mess with. I created another version, and then I did actually start going in with color pencils, and I really didn't like how it looked. You could possibly just see underneath here there's some color pencil, down here there's some color pencil, and I didn't like the effect of the color pencil on top of the acrylic. So I got out my markers and I just did like dots and lines and squiggles. I'm not mad about it. I don't hate it, but I'm not mad about it. It is what it is, and I will probably never do that again. And then the last page is in my A4 sketchbook. Ooh, and that's, we're flipping back because I was trying to fill this sketchbook for the end of February. This one, and this was a photo based upon a photo that Natasha Newton had put up in her Patreon, and I got the palette knife because by then I knew that I liked working with the palette knife, and I like scraping, so I put a bit of acrylic on the palette knife and I scrape it, and that's what I did. I did put Tombow pens down first, like as a base layer, and then I scraped acrylic on top. And I did attempt here to add a bit of neo color, and I didn't like it, so I tried to rub it out. I also did the same here. You can see the white. There's a bit of white neo color, sorry, number 2s here, but I stopped because I didn't like the neo color on top. I just like the texture that I got with the palette knife and scraping it, because it sits on, and then it sits on the paper, and then it sits above the layer below it, and you scrape it away and you just get these like, all this texture. I really love this texture. I like that I can see where slightly more paint has been left behind. So it's not anything magical, amazing, I know this, but I feel like I came out of it, the month of acrylics, understanding what I like. So my intention had been to use this for a final piece, so to speak, and I just didn't have the time. Okay, so in terms of favorites, I feel like I should probably recap. What I find interesting is the ones that I have enjoyed returning to and looking at are the ones where I used the squeegee or the palette knife. So from this sketchbook, it's definitely the one I did on the 24th from the Trees Illustrated book. I like this. It needs something more, I know this, but I think this is a good attempt that I'm happy with. I like the little fishies popping out. I like the simple little lines with the markers, the little dots. It's not overboard, whereas this one is like so much. I don't like this, it's too much. I like the little that I've added here. This works for me. In terms of using the palette knife, well, hang on, let's revisit this one. I really love, 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 love. So that, as a refresher, was inspired by this one, which was the Squidgy Catalyst Wedge. This paper works really well. You get these lovely like circly, apart from here I don't think I had enough paint, whereas here it's more textured, this paper, so it doesn't smush along as smoothly as it does in the Royal Talens books. So I really like these two, possibly the color choice as well, because they feel quite oomphy to me. And then these two with the palette knife, and I really like the texture. It is the texture. I love the textured look of them both. So I guess going forward, it's a case of, if I'm going to incorporate acrylics into my work in any way, it's probably going to be using the palette knife. Was able to layer a little bit of color on top here. You can see there's some pencil. If I use it thinly enough, and on this paper it seems to work. This was too thick. The Neo color didn't work so well, and I think I tried with pencil and you couldn't really see it because the colors were too dense, too dark. The value was too dark. So yeah, that's my thinking. This month is oil pastel month. Do you want a sneak peek? I did show a sneak peek on YouTube. I'll show you one more that I did last night. It's not very good, but it's better than the one that I showed you. Which I had done on Saturday. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this was in some way helpful or inspiring, and that you have learned something from it in some way. I know I learned something from using acrylics for the month. I obviously did other stuff as well in this sketchbook and in this sketchbook, but that's the stuff that I did with acrylics. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, please do give it a thumbs up so that I know that you did. Let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what I managed to achieve, and I will see you probably on Friday with another video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye. I say a lot. Crikey.